This conference will now be recorded.
So this is where we are. Yesterday, we wanted to go ahead and create a very simple storage account. And we said, how do you create an Azure storage account using an ARM template? And we were discussing about a couple of things when we are talking about an ARM template. We said, firstly, the parameter section. And we said parameters are used for parameterization so that your template can be reusable. And then you had variables. And we said that variables are, let's say, like parameters, but you cannot override them, meaning you cannot change them after you declare in the template. So something which is static in nature is something that you declare inside something known as what? Variables. And then we have the actual section which is called resources, where we are now creating the resources. And now I said that each and every resource out here is an object because it's an array, and you can declare multiple objects inside this particular array known as resources. And here we said, okay, fine. You want to go ahead and create something known as parameter storage account name, and it says type Microsoft.storage forward slash what? Storage accounts. And then we have API version and everything. And here what we did is that we are making sure that the name, that the location and everything what we declared will go into the parameter section, take a reference from that parameter section, and then build out our infrastructure. And how do we deploy this, guys? We said go to the Azure portal and you use something known as a deploy custom template. Say build your own template, load the file, give the mandatory parameters, and then say review and create. So that's how we go ahead and do a deployment out there. Meaning that's not the only way, but that's one of the ways that you can go ahead and do a deployment out here. So any questions till here, guys? Anything till here? And guys, one quick thing to note is that whatever templates that we will be discussing, I will put it on an online repository. Like since we're in which way is doing Azure DevOps, right? I'm using a DevOps repository out here, which is called my class. I mean, this is a project out here. We'll discuss what this is and etc. But for now, I'll just give you these links, okay? Like I have ARM templates and PowerShell scripts. Like I've created two folders out here known as ARM templates and PowerShell scripts out here. Now PowerShell, I still have to add a couple of things, so I'll just add it over the weekend. But ARM templates, right now, for example, you're looking at storage account. We have virtual machines, web apps, and etc. Go into the storage account, and I have, let's say, something like all these folders out here. That how do you create a single storage account? How do you create multiple storage accounts and etc. So how do you download it? Very simple. This is the actual file. Just come here, say download. Okay. So you have the three dots out here. Just say download. So what I'll be doing out here is that I'll make sure to give the link to someone online so that they can take it and keep it in your group so that everyone can start using it out. Okay. So let me do that real quick. So this is the link, guys. I'm sending in the chat here. Please use this link, and please make sure, my humble request, please make sure take this link and put it in the group. Okay, whichever group that you are all a part of, the WhatsApp group, please place it in so that even the offline class can take the best advantage of it. Just in case if you don't get the link, please do ask me. I'll send it across. Okay. Okay. So let's set the agenda for today. So this is where I am, and this is the script what I have written yesterday. Now I want to slightly enhance this. I am now creating how many? One storage accounts, right? There is just one storage account that got created using this particular template. But let's say you get a requirement telling that it's not one, but it's somewhere around 20, 30. Or let's start with a very minimal number like 2. You get now a requirement telling that, okay, fine, I need 2 storage accounts to be created using the same template. Okay, is it a requirement that they ask? Yes, they will definitely ask such a kind of requirements. Let's say when you work on the real-time environment. So one thing that you can do is that I know for a fact that this is a resource block and I can declare multiple resources inside it. I can go ahead and I can declare multiple what resources inside this out. So what I'm going to do is that I'll just collapse this first resource, which is starting at line number 39. This is the entire resource block. This is the entire object block. I am just copying this out, just doing a comma, pasting it out here. So I am creating a second resource right now. I am saying this is storage account name 2. Okay. I'm saying this is name 2 and parameters, everything is the same. Like everything else is the same, but I don't have this name, right? So what I'll do is I will say, okay, fine. Add a new parameter. And this particular parameter is called storage account name 2. And we have to define a couple of things like what is the type. I'll say it is an integer, comma. I can say, like I can give a default value out here, or I can just say, okay, fine, description or metadata. Description. I'll say the name of the second storage account. Okay, fair enough. And I'll save this out. So what I have right now is that I said, okay, fine, these are parameters. I have storage account name and I have another name known as storage account name 2. Then I have the location. I said, okay, fine, the default value is East US 2 and the allowed values are East US, North Europe and Central US. And then I said SKU name is standard LRS. I said the default value here is standard LRS. And variables, I said, okay, fine, this is a storage V2. And then we have the first storage account that is getting created from line number 45 to line number 60. This is the lines of code that is helping you create the first storage account. And then you have the second storage account that I just copied. So what I did a copy and paste. So let's try doing a deployment out here. Let's try doing a deployment. I'll say firstly, I want to see which folder this is in. So I'll just say copy path. And this time I won't be deploying it going into the portal directly. Rather, I'll be using a PowerShell script to deploy it. So you can also use a PowerShell script in order to deploy this out. And in here, what I'll do is I'll open up my PowerShell IC. And once I open up my PowerShell IC, I'll do a change directory into the path where these files are there. So I have my PowerShell IC in here right now. And firstly, I do not have to log in because I've already have logged in. So my details are all cached. But if you look at my Azure portal, I do not have any resource groups, nothing. It's plain, it's blank. So I need a resource group to begin with. So what I'll do is I'll say a new hyphen AZ resource group. I'll say name of the resource group is something like test ARMRG. The location is East US2, something like this. And I'll go ahead and create this particular storage account out here. So I'm just going ahead and giving a value known as, or I'm just going ahead and giving a parameter or giving a command known as new hyphen AZ storage account. And I went ahead and AZ resource group, and I went ahead and created a resource group with the name test ARMRG. Now what I'll be doing is that I know that I have my template in a particular location. So I'll say CD into that particular path. So it is JSON handling. This is where my templates are. And as and when I do this, I'll now give a different command right now. And this command is used to deploy ARM templates. And what is the command here? I'll say new hyphen. Let's wait for this to load. I'll say AZ resource group deployment, meaning deploy something inside the resource group that I've created. And I'll say the name of the deployment is something like storage ARM deploy. Like I'm just giving a random name out here. And then I'll say the resource group name is test ARMRG. Then I have, let's say, something like template file. Very, very, very important. is that what is the name of the template file out here? Say dot backslash, and I'll say storage arm.json. This is the template file that I'm deploying. And I have a couple of things out here. Now, one thing that is important to note is that I did not pass the name of my storage accounts, and this is coming like an integer, so this is not right. String. Okay. Now this is, let's say, storage account name 2. I have passed the values for location and the SKU name, but I haven't passed the names of the storage account yet, right? So I have to pass the names of the storage account to it. Like yesterday, what did we do? When we loaded this file, it was already automatically asking you, please give these parameters. But right now you do not have that thing, right? So let's do a save. Right now, I do not have a portal like that where I can go ahead and declare the names. So using this particular PowerShell script, what I'll do is that I'll say hyphen storage account name. It is now loading a parameter telling that, okay, fine, I see that you have declared few parameters. Could you please go ahead and declare this out? I'll say, okay, dev str acc to abc000. And finally, I will say storage account name 2. I'll simply copy this name, paste it out here. I'll say 1. So I'm going ahead and creating what? 2 different storage accounts out here. Using this particular command, it is known as new -az resource group deployment. And I've given a particular parameter known as name. And I said it is storage ARM deploy, resource group name, template file, and then storage account names and etc. These are the parameters that I'm passing. And what I'll do right now is that I'll give another parameter which is called hyphen what if. So what this command will do is that it won't deploy anything, it won't create anything. It will tell you what happens if you execute this command. Okay, so if I do this, it's saying, okay, fine, getting the latest status of all the resources. And finally, it will print something out here telling that what you're adding and etc. So let's give it a second and let's see what happens. Any questions still here, guys? Anything till here? And it is now saying, okay, fine, you know what? If you go ahead and do something like this, it's saying, okay, fine, great. This is the resource that I'll be creating. It's known as what? Storage. Now, if you look at this, the storage account name will be what? Dev store ABC, LRS, tags. You have a couple of tags out here, so I'll also go ahead and give you the tags. Then if I further scroll down, you have something like dev store ABC001 and etc. Right? So it's saying I will go ahead and create 2 resources. It's saying 2 to create. These are the number of changes that you will be seeing. 2 resources to create. So I haven't created anything. I'll say 2 resources to create. And finally, when I'm satisfied with this, I'm saying, okay, fine, these are something that I'm creating. I'm not deleting anything. I'll say great. I'll remove this parameter known as what if. I'll now execute my script. And as and when I execute this script, right, what is going to happen is if I go into my resource groups, I have a resource group which is called test_armrg. And if I go into this resource group, if I come down to a setting called as deployments, I am seeing a deployment which is coming from the PowerShell. And this is the name of the deployment that we named, right? It is called storage ARM deploy. And it is telling there are 2 resources that you are deploying right now, which is dev store ABC2 something something 001 and dev store ABC000. Okay. Any questions till here, guys? Anything till here? How we are doing, what we are doing, and etc. So I am now coming through a PowerShell script right now. And this is the section what I'll kind of refer to. And once I refresh the screen, it will tell that the resources are created. And if I look into this particular resource group, I will be able to see these 2 resources that are coming in. Let's do a refresh. and it will take some time to reflect. And now it's telling, okay, fine, you have two different storage accounts out here that got created. Okay, but there is an issue. Let me delete these out. Let's say yes. There is an issue with this. The issue here is that, and yes, this is the output how you get it. It's saying this is what I deployed, this is what all I created. Okay, and this console tells you what all I have created, what is everything that comes through this template and etc. But again, when I come back and talk about the issue here is that there are two, right? I went ahead and I was able to do just a copy, paste, and I was able to get started. What if there are 20? I'll have to do the same copy 20 times, right? Ideally, what I did, I just copied whatever was there from line number 45 to line number 60, and I said, okay, fine, just change a couple of parameters, and then we were, good to go. But if they are like about not 2 but 20, I have to copy this 20 different times. Now my template is somewhere around 78 lines right now. If I do it 20 different times, imagine how big my template would be. So from a management perspective, this is not the best approach. And who's managing all these? We, as a DevOps engineers, we are managing all these things out. So as and when I increase the number of lines of code, it becomes difficult to read and it becomes difficult to manage, right? So can I do something like for each loop? We are doing something known as a for each loop, right? You're saying this is a okay, fine, this is the parameter and etc. And we were saying, okay, fine, do a for each loop and create each and every time create a storage account. But how do I apply that for each concept here in ARM? That's the concern that I have, because I can do it PowerShell, I can do using a PowerShell script. But again, it brings me back to the same problem that it is not declarative syntaxing, it's an imperative syntax, and I have to do a lot of declarations. I have to make sure to write the logic, and if something fails, I have to make sure to fix it. Right? There are a couple of issues with PowerShell. Again, I said that there is a concept known as polymorphism, where if you want to create multiple things at the same time, PowerShell doesn't handle it that well. It fails handling that one. So you're increasing the time to create the infrastructure. So my concern is that how do I decrease the time to create the infrastructure? At the same time, how do I make sure my templates are clean and modular? Two things. Modular meaning very modern, right? Because I don't want to do this again and again. I don't want to do this out. So let's do one thing. Let's come back here. Let's write a new template out here, because this is not an approach that I want to follow. This is not something that I want to go ahead and follow out. Now, this is what I want to do. I want to create 3 storage accounts or 2 storage accounts, anything. So the count of number of storage accounts is how many? 2 or 3. Let's say 2. For our convenience, let's say 2. The names of the storage account should be something like dev store bcd 000, and let's say something like US East 2, because I am creating it in US East 2. And the second storage account should be something like this, but it is 001. Let's forget US East 2 for now. I'll remove this out. Okay, makes sense. This should be the names of the storage account. And if I want to create a third storage account, it will be what? 002. Meaning this is a counter value, right? It is for the first time it is 0, second time it is 1, third time 2, fourth time 3, so on and so forth. Meaning if I am able to somehow increase this value each and every time my template is getting deployed, my purpose is solved. Right? Agreed with this? Any concerns, guys? If I am able to increase this particular counter value every time I'm deploying a template, I'm good with it. And at the same time, I can take the best advantage of the ARM templates about polymorphism and all those concepts out here. So what I will do right now is okay, fine. I'll understand. Okay, fine. This is what I need. I'll come down and I'll now start writing an ARM template. And what is the first step here, guys? ARM exclamation. So ARM exclamation, starting to write an ARM template out here. I will delete firstly all the blocks which I don't need. So I don't need a function. I don't need an output. Not mandatory. So I'll come down and firstly I will say I will declare a couple of parameters right now. What are all the parameters that I need? Name, a storage account name, then let's say the location, then let's say the replication tier, all these things. So what I'll say is that I'll say okay, fine, new parameter. I'll say storage account name, and I'll say a default value. And what should be the value here, guys? Can anyone tell me? Should it be 000 or 001 or 002? What? 00? No 1, no 2, nothing. It should just be 00, right? So I'll say okay, fine. I'll copy till here, okay? Because I'm omitting the 0, 1, 2, all these things. Copying till here, and I will paste it here. 00, that's it. Because the next counter value is something that I'll have to generate. And we can say in the metadata that this is the name, or this is the base value for storage account name. And I'll say okay, fine, great. This is good until here, comma, new parameter. I'll say location, and in the location I'll say the default value is ECUS2, and do a comma here. That's it. Finally, replication. I'll say new parameter, replication or SKU name, anything I can declare anything here. I'll say this is standard LRS, and I'll say this is the replication model, or this is the replication type. Do you think we need any other parameters out here? Anything else? SKU, I've defined it as replication. So SKU is done. So we are good till here, right? So now what I'll do is that I'll go into my resources and I will start typing in ARM hyphen storage. Done. Now let's focus on the name. What should be the name of my storage account? Anyone? What should I declare the name of my storage account as? Sorry? Yes, please. Go ahead. Anyone? So we have to write.
Declare a variable.
So this value plus something, right? So what we are suggesting is that yes, this is the default value plus 0, default value plus 1, default value plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, how many ever storage accounts that you do want. So what I am doing here, addition. I am adding, or I want to add this base value with a 0 for the first time, and I want to add the base value with 1 for the second time, and etc. This addition, if let's say, if I talk about the term called addition, it's just binding two things out, right? If I complicate it, and tell it in an English, addition is also known as concatenation. If they say concatenation, it's the same like addition. Concat is nothing but take two strings or take multiple strings and add them together. That is known as concatenation out here. So if I say it's addition, it's concatenation, same thing. So what I'll do is that I will make, sorry, I'll take the best advantage of this and I will say, okay, fine, delete this value because I have no use for it. open and close square brackets. Yesterday I referred the parameter section, right? Today what I'll do is that I'll say concat. So as in when I do concat, it's telling it's a function and there are multiple strings that you can pass inside a concatenation. So what I'll do out here is that I'll say, okay, fine, concat. I'm passing a value known as concat, a short form for concatenation, also known as addition. Now it's asking me, what do you want to add together? Like what all do you want to add? I'll say, okay, fine, this is the syntax of it. Concat, open and close parenthesis. And I will say concat the storage account name with a 0, with a 1, with a 2, that counter value. Where is the storage account name right now? It's in the parameter section. I'll say concat parameters, storage account name, comma. If I do a comma, I'll have to declare another string. So add this with something else. I will say copy index. I'm not giving a 0, I'm not giving a 1. I am telling copy index open and close brackets. This is called another function known as copy index. This value boils down to 0 for the first time, 2 for the second time, 3 for the 1 for the second time, 2 for the third time, and etc. This is called an offset value. These values, right, are known as an offset value. Okay. By default, copy index start with an offset value of 0. So let's use that. Let's use this logic. And I'm saying, okay, fine. This is how I want to declare right now. But how many copies of it that I need, right? How many copies of a resource that I need? In my case, I need 2. Where do I declare it then? How do I declare it then? Sorry? Okay, 0, 2. So what happens is that if I do a 2, the value of copy index becomes 2 every time. 3 next time, 4 next time, 5 next time, next time. It's starting from 2. This is the offset. I cannot declare here. What I will do is that after tags, after location, anywhere, I'm okay with that. I'll just give an enter and I'll say copy. I'm saying copy this resource for so many number of times. Saying this is a list. I'll say the name of the copy is something like storage copy loop. Just giving a normal name. Anything, this can be anything, okay? And I'll say count. Count is an integer. And I'll just put a comma here. This is how I declare multiple resources. Now I'm telling it is 2 resources that I need with the name that is coming out of the copy index plus the base value. So I am adding the name of the storage account with the copy index, which is 0 for the first time, 1 for the second time. I am doing a concatenation, and this is where I am declaring how should I copy it. Okay. Guys, got this? Any questions here? How did I do this? How basically I'm trying to achieve this and etc. Anyone online, offline, anyone guys, any questions? Any
Can you,
questions with this?
yeah, can you repeat the copy index?
I'm sorry.
Can you repeat the copy index?
Sure. So I'm saying this is a copy index. And did you follow till here? What is concatenation? What is this?
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm saying concat this with copy index. But have I given a number of how many resources that I want? I haven't. That's the reason I am introducing something known as a copy block.
Okay.
This is the for each loop for ARM. Or this is, let's say, the for loop for ARM. And I'm saying this is the count is 2. Okay, good until here?
Yeah, yeah. If you colon 20, it will create 20 stories.
Yes, if I do a count as 20, it will take 20 storages.
Okay. Got it.
Now there is also one thing that I want this count to be decided by my client. Like whatever count he gives, so many resources will be getting created. So what I'll do is I'll parameterize this value also. I won't hard code it here. So that's the reason I'll come here and I'll say, okay, fine, add a new parameter. And I'll say new parameter which is called count. And should it be a string? It's an integer. So I'll say it is int. That's a default value. By default, I'm giving it a value called 2. By default, the client, the customer can override this out. Coming down, I will say, okay, fine. Here, parameters count. I am parameterizing this as well. And there are a couple of things that I need to parameterize because I have used something known as a location. So I'll say this is location. Is not this one, but parameters location. And I'll say this is parameters replication. I'll say this is standard. Done with my template. Now there is only one block of resource. It's now easy for me to manage. But this block of resource I'm making sure gets repeated again and again. It's just like declaring this. 2 blocks, but not so much complexity. With a lot of ease, I have just introduced something else known as a copy here. That's it. Now what I'll do right now is I'll save this template. I'll say this is storage multiple.json file. So say JSON, just save. Okay. Now I'm saving this file right now and I'll say, okay, fine. Go back to my PowerShell script. Same thing, but the template right now changes. It's not storage ARM, it's dot / storage multiple.json. This is the file that I want to use. And I don't need to give all these values. Right? I just said, okay, fine. This is the value of the storage account, which is great. EastUS2 and etc. Now I can just say new - Azure Resource Group deployment. Name of the deployment is storage ARM deploy. And let's also change it. I'll say multiple storages. I'll say resource group name is just ARMRG. And I'm saying template file is what? This particular template file, please make use of this. And I'll say great. Let's split our screen and just execute this command. And after a couple of minutes or after a couple of, let's say, seconds, you'll be able to see that I have a deployment that is going on the Azure portal, just called multiple storages. Firstly, I came up with storage deploy, one single storage account. Now I'm coming with multiple storages. And if I refresh this a couple of times, do you see how the storage account name is now coming in? And it is creating this at the same time. It's implementing the parallel logic inside itself. So I haven't told that, please go ahead, create it parallelly or create it serially and etc. I said, please go ahead and create the resources. And by default, the template works in a parallel mode. Like how many ever resources you say, the template will create this in a parallel mode. If you want to make sure to change it, let's say if you don't want this to do parallelly, you want to approach this one after the other or two after, let's say two at a time. In this copy, right, what I can say is I can add something known as mode, parallel serial. By default, it is parallel. I can say serial and I can say batch size 2, 2 at a time. So if there are 20, how many times will this loop execute? 10 times. Each and every time it will create 2 storage accounts. So you can either do a parallel, meaning by default ARM templates work in a parallel mode. You can also do a serial. Okay, so it is parallel and serial. Parallel happening at the same time, serial one after the other. Okay. Any
So the time taken in parallel and the time taken in serial will be the same, or it differs?
no time taken in serial will be a lot, because serial what will happen, Fareen, is that it'll create the first storage account, provision it, and
Yes.
it'll say, okay, fine, the first one is created. It'll go to the second. So it'll go one after the other. So it'll take a lot of time. Whereas in parallel, right, you'll have, let's
Yeah.
say, all of them created in one time.
Okay. So parallel is more convenient than serial.
That's correct.
Okay.
But then you actually bring up a good point. Then the question here is that if parallel is so convenient than serial, then why does ARM template even have this? Why does ARM template even have this particular logic telling that, okay, fine, it's asking the user to declare parallelly or serially? What happens sometimes is that when you are creating resources parallelly, and we face this, let's say what we do is that we have, let's say, somewhere around hundreds or 200 of resources that are getting created. If I create them at one go, after, let's say, somewhere around 50 or 60 resources at one time, my system, right, on which I'm running this script should also support it. My RAM should support so many things at the same time, because the ARM templates are using the RAM capacity that I have and then creating things parallelly. So it's using some CPU from my end. Also, what Azure does is that after 40 or 50 resources, it tells, you know what, I won't allow you to create more than this because you're using a lot of bandwidth. And it will apply something known as throttling. This is called throttle. What Microsoft is going to do is that it'll say, okay, fine, there are a lot of customers who are using it at the same time. It's like same thing, guys. It's like you have a router, there are like 100 people connected to it. Don't you think that the internet speed will kind of reduce? It will, right? Same thing applies to Azure also. So it depends upon your internet, it depends upon the system that you're using. Let's say I am right now on an i3 processor. I cannot do 40 and 50 resources at the same time. My system will get hang. If I have multiple cores, if I have multiple RAMs and etc., then this is possible, provided Azure also supports me. So that's the reason ARM templates come up with something known as serial mode also, asking the user that what you can declare things out. Let's say I have 100 resources right now. I can do 20 batch at one time. I can say, okay, fine, go ahead with 20. Now it's telling it is 20 and it's giving me an error because the count is 2. So it cannot be more than the count. So it's telling, okay, fine, if I have 100 there, it'll say, okay, fine, 20 in a batch, then I'll do 5 times. So 5 batches, each batch size of what, 20. Now it's giving me an error here. And if I just click on this, it said copy is failing at this time because what? The copy batch size must be a positive integer value and cannot exceed the value of the count. Count is what? 2, right? If I say this is 200, then I don't get an error here, right? It's like my batch size cannot be more than my count. Okay, let's do 2 only and let's delete this out. Good until here, guys. Any questions still here? Anyone? Any questions? And I'll make sure to place these templates on the repository so that you can download it. So I'll keep adding things on as and when we do the classes. Okay. Now, one more thing I need is that this is good enough. I am creating, let's say, 3 different storage accounts and all that stuff. But the requirement has changed slightly. Again, I have 3 teams. Okay, let's delete this storage accounts right now. Let's go here and say, oh, firstly, I'll just delete this out. Give me a second. Say delete. I'll say yes. Okay. Now I have another requirement right now that is coming up. There are 3 teams out here: Dev, QA, DevOps. 3 teams need the storage account names to be different. Like Dev wants the storage account to be starting with Dev, QA wants it QA, DevOps wants it to start with DevOps, and etc. The developer wants me to create the storage account in EC2 S2. DevOps wants me to create it in North Europe. QA wants me to create it in Central US, 3 different locations. Developer wants me to create it in, let's say, standard LRS. DevOps wants me to create it in standard GRS. QA wants me to create it in also standard GRS. So even the configuration is changing. Then how do I handle that here? Because if it were PowerShell, I could have done a for each. We could have done a for loop. I said for, then we can go ahead with, and then we can do a one-to-one mapping. But here it's a bit difficult, right? Because right now, if you understand this, I'm just concatenating things and I'm saying, okay, fine, this is how you do it, and etc. I'm sorry, separate parameter file. But I haven't come to the parameter file concept at all. Like I haven't said that, okay, fine, I need a parameter, all that stuff, and etc. So I'm just playing around with only something known as a main file. It's a main.json file that I'm using right now. So how do I do this? Is that we did read about this concept, right? We said, okay, fine, let's open up my folder. Let's see if I have the file still. Let's say H, and we had something like this. We said, let's forget about the containers right now. Let's remove this out right now. Something like this. We said it is development and the value is this, QA the value is this, DevOps the value is this, and we are able to store all this infrastructure in this way, right? Can I use the same concept in a combination with ARM templates? Because this is something that I was doing. Like I was putting it all in a file and I was reading from a PowerShell and I was creating the cert. Same thing, what I'll do is I'll again create another file known as, again, I'll say ARM. So I'll say ARM has, exclamation to create a basic a skeleton template out here. I'm removing the output, removing the functions. And very importantly, I will say storage account names. This is now not a string, but this is an array. It's the array, or let's say I will say this is storage account properties, as in the name, the SKU, the location, and everything. And what I will do is that I will change the type from a string to an array. It supports it. Now I will say that the default value is not just some value, but it's a array. I'm declaring an array here, and here I will now say name, and let's copy the same name out here, which is dev xyz, something like this. And then we have like SKU, and the developer wants it in what? Standard LRS underscore LRS. Location in what? East US 2. And I'll just put a comment here telling that development team. In the same way, can I add another configuration to it for QA? Inside the array, now I'm inside the array. This array can support multiple objects. Same like the one that they did here. It was an array, storage details was an array, and it had multiple objects here, right? In the same way, I'll use the same concept here and I'll say, okay, fine, I'll just copy this block, the comma, and now say this is QA. This is standard GRS. This is not East US2, but this is North Europe. Europe, Europe. And say this is QA team. I can also have the same block for DevOps. I can say, okay, fine, I can have the same block for DevOps team also. Now let's see what is going to happen right now. I'll say, okay, fine. Resources, ARM hyphen storage, because this is the same thing that I want to do. Now I'll say parameters, storage account properties. This is the parameter. This is the only parameter that I declared. Open and close square brackets. Copy index. Ex index. After the square bracket is closing here, I'll say dot. Take this name, paste it here. This is the syntax declaration of it. I will say copy index. So I'll say parameters storage account properties, go into the property. And since there are multiple properties, I want you to do a copy index and I want you to look for one particular property known as what? Name. Same way, what should be, let's say, I can take out the display name. I don't need the tags here. If I want to use the same concept for location, because location is also different, right? What should be the value? How should be the value here, guys? Can anyone help me with this? Say parameters.
Parameters, storage account properties,
Again,
copy
copy
index,
index
dot location.
dot location. Right, and let's put a capital L here because I gave a capital L there also. And finally, the SKU. I'll say parameters, same thing, storage account
Parameters,
property.
storage
Say copy
account properties, copy index,
dot
dot
SKU.
okay.
Right now, how should I give the count here? How many times should this template get executed? Two
Once.
times. Two times, because there are two blocks here. First time it should create a dev. Second time it should create what? Like it should create two
Okay.
resources. So two blocks. So two times it should execute this particular resource section. So this resource section should be multiplied by two times. And here I'm still getting an error here. I'll say, okay, fine. It says template is failed because copy index is not expected at this location because I haven't declared my copy value yet. I'll say copy. I'll say name and I'll define the loop name as advanced copy. I'll say count. And what should be the count here, guys? 2.
2.
Okay, so let's say tomorrow, if let's say a QA team comes and, or let's say the DevOps team comes and adds another block here, the count should increase by 3. Meaning I don't want the count to be a static number. The same thing we did in PowerShell, right? We said array dot count. In the same way, what I'll do in ARM template is that I will say, please, or not this one, let's say syntax is properly, the length of parameters storage properties. This storage properties has a length of 2. 2. Because we have two blocks here, two items or two objects here. The length will become 2. So I am making sure to give the length in this way. Okay. Good until here, guys. So I'm saying the
So,
count is not.
however, the name, location, and SKU has to be copied twice. So why is that you giving the copy in line number 32? Instead, we can give it after the whole resource is completed.
You can do that. Like this copy, right? Like this doesn't have a proper location. Like anywhere in my template, I'm good with it. Anywhere.
Okay, so if we give it only once, then it takes for the name, location, as well as SKU.
Yes. So this is one per a resource. So if I declare the copy anywhere between the open and closing braces, this this copy parameter is going to get applied to the entire section. So
Okay.
wherever I am declaring it, I'm okay. I'm not a problem. So you can declare it after this queue anywhere, not a problem, but you have to declare it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so finally, I'll say the tier is standard here because I don't want to create a premium. I'll say standard. I'll say save, and I'll say this is multiple storages advanced.json. Right now, what I'll do is that I'll use this template and I'll say, okay, fine. I won't create a resource, but I'll see what if. I'll apply a parameter called what if here. I'll say, let's say multiple advanced.json hyphen what if I do this is okay, fine. You have a what if parameter, so I won't create it. I will tell you what happens if you create it. If you end up creating it, I'll tell you what happens. And it's generating, let's say, the output, and it's saying if you do this, you will get something like this, or this is the output that you will be getting out. It'll take a minute and it'll tell you this is what is the output. So very importantly, this is how I am declaring my loop. I'm saying copying index, and I'm saying this is how the copy index is, and I'm saying a dot name, and I'm basically implementing this particular strategy out here. This is making, or this is a modular approach, like making the template as modular as you can. If you want to accommodate 20 teams, the only thing that you have to iterate through, or the only thing that you have to add through is this. Just add another block, you'll end up creating another resource. It said it failed. It says according to the validation, it says okay, fine. So this particular name, right? So this is a failure. It says, you know what, it failed with additional parameter. The name QA storage XYZ ABC00 is already taken. Like this name was already taken. I'm not sure why. So let's come back, change our template a bit. I'll say this is not 001, and I'll say this is 002. I'll even convert this to 2, and I'll say something store. Execute this out once again. So this is a good way to validate your templates. If it fails, or if it happens something, it's a very good way to validate your templates. And here it's clearly telling that what, this particular name is already taken, please give a new name and etc. So this is how we implement this strategy, guys. And I will give this templates to you all. Like, I'll please take it as a reference. Please don't copy the entire template and kind of use this again, because it's not going to be a lot of advantage. Please try to write it from the scratch, and please use this just as a reference, telling that if you are missing something out somewhere, please use this as a reference. Okay. And now it says here, I'll be creating 2 different resources for you. One with QA store XYZ ABC002, one with the dev store XYZ ABC002. In location East US2, location North Europe, standard GRS, standard LRS. So this is how I will be able to accommodate multiple teams. Whatever that you can do on the portal and whatever that you can do on the PowerShell, you'll be sorry, you'll be able to implement the same thing using the ARM template as well. Okay, any questions, guys? Any questions here? Anything, guys? Yes. Other than yes, this is like not only providing infrastructure to the end user. Let's say you are now a DevOps engineer, and this is our primary responsibility to maintain the state of an infrastructure. What do I mean by maintenance of a state of an infrastructure is that what if, let's say, your infrastructure gets deleted? Do you have that configuration saved somewhere? This is what it is. And this is very popularly called as infrastructure as code. You're storing all your infrastructure in the form of a code. Okay, so you can use ARM, you can use Terraform, PowerShell, whatever technology that you do have. So if you come from a cloud like AWS, right? They call it as cloud formation templates. Like you have something known as cloud formation templates and etc. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that any cloud that you are on, these becomes very important. Like templates or automation becomes very important, because this is, let's say, the primary bread and butter on what we live as a DevOps engineer. So creation of the templates, maintenance of these templates, maintenance of this infrastructure is what our role is. Okay, any more questions here, guys? So the assignment for you all is that, so you have like 2 days of break. Saturdays and Sundays we generally don't have classes. Please revise whatever we did. Try to write your own scripts. Okay, please make sure to make a note of whichever areas that you are facing a difficulty with. You can ask those questions whenever you get. You can WhatsApp me, or you can just ask it in the class. Whichever is comfortable, please make sure to do that. And also, my requirement right now is that I want containers to be created inside a storage account using ARM templates. Okay, and where do you look at the template? Just don't go around here and there. There is a very good documentation for ARM templates. So I'll say ARM template documentation, and this is the documentation for ARM templates, and I'll just show you how to use it. It has references. Okay, it has a section known as references. Go into the template reference, and this will give you all the templates, everything that Azure has. Just come down, look at something known as a storage accounts, blobs, containers. It just tells you how do I create a container. This is known as a bicep. Don't look at it right now. JSON. It tells you how do I create a container, what I use to create a container, and if you come down, it says container immutable policy and etc. And if you come down here, right, if you just scroll down here, it'll give you multiple examples. It's like how do you use an ARM template and etc. And you can see multiple examples. For example, I need create a storage account and a blob container, right? This is the example that I need. If I click on this link, I have the entire template. I have all the templates and etc. getting generated. And if I just come down, if I just scroll back, it says create storage account with multiple blob containers. How do I create multiple also? So this is how you use a template reference. Okay, this is how we make use of the documentation out here. And believe me, guys, even when we are doing in the real-time environment, this is something that we don't have out of our mind. Like we know that these are the properties, this is how you can use it. But no one remembers the syntax of it. Like it is not recommended because there are so many lines of code. Because when we write this in a real-time environment, right, this goes somewhere around 3 or 4,000 lines of code. Like that is how big a template is, because we have to consider a lot of factors and etc. So it's not recommended to kind of remember all these things. You just have to understand what is the basic, how you can develop on top of the basic. Okay, so that's the reason we are hitting the basic out here, telling that okay fine, what the basic is, and we can start developing on top of it. So please use this documentation to see how you can create a storage account with one container. If you are able to create one container, multiple storage accounts with multiple containers inside each, how can you do that? Okay, fair enough. Okay guys, so that's it from my end today. So we'll meet on Monday and we'll discuss more on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Bye.
Thank you.